We're recording. Ah! Okay.
Hey, what's
Hey guys, what's up? So today I wanted to talk to you guys about my dental school interview experience for you guys to have an idea of what to expect if you get an interview for these schools that I got an interview for. I just want to start off with a disclaimer. Not everyone is going to have the same experience. I've talked to people who were in the cycle that I was in, and they had completely opposite experiences at the same schools. So, don't psych yourself out from what other people are saying. If you hear that your friend is at the same school and they got an interview before you and they're like, oh my gosh, it was so hard, I died, I cried, it was awful, like, don't believe that. Maybe it was for them, but everyone's interview is very personal, and you can really tailor it to how you want it to go. So the first school that I'm going to talk about is UF. This was my first interview, and it was my only pre-December interview. So how they start off is they give you a presentation. Everyone that is interviewing that day is all together. It's in a stadium or it's in an auditorium, and they kind of give you a bunch of PowerPoints that you go through. After that, you do a tour of the school with current dental students, and this is a chance for you to ask questions, maybe some casual questions that you can't really ask people that work there. Really take advantage of what they have to say. The campus is really big. I recommend that you wear comfy shoes for this interview day. Then you're taken to a different room where they have a really quick presentation, I think on finances or student life. I don't really remember. Once that's over, they have like these little games that you can play and like mess around with while you're waiting, because they're gonna call you once it's your turn to get interviewed. When you are called, you are taken to another room, and this is the admissions office. Usually it's 2 people at a time that are waiting. So you wait there, and then there are 2 rooms. But when it's your turn to interview, the person will come out of the room and will call your name, and you go up. A little story time. I got the assistant dean of admissions, and I dropped my folder when I was gonna shake her hand, and just don't do that, guys. That was really bad of me. I was like so nervous. Don't do it. So for this interview, you're gonna have 3 interviewers asking you questions. Mine started off really casual. She just asked me about how my day was going. At this time, there was a really bad hurricane happening in Florida. So some of them had asked me if I was doing well, if my family was okay, things like that. And they kind of it was really comfortable. Some questions that they asked me were, tell me about yourself, why dentistry? Then they asked me something that was more personal to my story, and they said, if I wanted to be a dentist from so early on in my childhood, why didn't I have any more experience? So just prepared for challenging questions like that. They asked me if there was something that they didn't ask that I would want to talk about. And in this situation, I talked about a job that I had for about 2 years in my undergraduate experience that I learned a lot from. So overall, this interview was on the more formal side out of the other interviews that I had, and I thought it went really well. When you're answering a question, they were like nodding, they were affirming me. Unfortunately, I got denied. They just, probably I wasn't good for their school. The next school I'm going to talk about is Columbia. This interview style was more casual, and it was one person interviewing you at a time. They sort of had it differently than the other 2 schools that I interviewed at. They had a quick student presentation with 2 of the dental students where they talked about financial aid, different scholarships that you can apply to, and you're waiting in a room sort of eating breakfast with everyone else. And then the interviews come first. With the other 2 schools, the interview came after all of the information that they give you in presentations. So just be wary of that. It's easier when you don't have the presentations first, because then you get to actually ask a question when they ask, oh, do you have any questions for us? So just something to keep in mind. After the breakfast, each interviewer comes into the room and calls everyone's name, and it's really interesting. I really enjoyed this style of interview. It was sort of like a first date. Everyone is interviewing at the same time in the same room, and it's like these little single dinner tables that are like aligned, so you can kind of hear everyone talking. I preferred this because it got my mind distracted. I wasn't as nervous, and it set a more casual tone to the interview. So questions that she asked me were if I'm a cook, why I wanted to study in New York, what my family thought about receiving an interview from an Ivy League, what my top schools were, what were the other schools I applied to. And then she asked me about why I retook some classes. This was more personal to my situation, how I felt about my scores and what I did to achieve the scores. What do I look for in a friend? Then after all of the interviews are done, you take a tour of the facilities and all of the presentations happen. The last school I'm going to talk about is Nova Southeastern University. The interview day starts off with catered lunch with current students, and then you take a tour of the campus. Then you have a presentation, very casual talk situation in a room with the associate dean with all of the other students. Once this is over, we're taking it into a waiting room, and then the different interviewers come in and call your name. So this style of interview was a one interviewer to one student. Story time, I actually missed when they called my name to be interviewed. I messed that up, but it was fine. He allowed me to interview with him again. So just know, guys, like I was a klutz. This interview style was also very casual, almost conversational. And some of the questions that he asked me were, first, talk about my life story, what I would consider a good day, what classes I was currently finishing up. He asked me what was going on with my maths because my math classes were sort of my worst classes. Even though I didn't fail them or anything, they just could have been better. The last question was why I wanted to go to Nova. And now I want to let you guys know about some questions that I was asked, but I can't remember what school asked me. So questions like, where do I see myself in 5 years? What I would do if I didn't get in that cycle? Where else did I receive an interview? So that's it for today, guys. I hope that this was useful. If you guys have any other questions about dental school or applying for dental school, please let me know down below. I will be starting in about a month, so I want to get in as many videos about the process as possible before I start. After that, I will be doing more in dental school vlogs. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.